You'll regret this!
No.
The security camera caught everything in crystal clear 4K resolution. My wife Maya screwing my boss Colin in our guest room while I was supposedly 3 hours away at a construction site. But here's the thing, nobody knew. I'd been watching from my truck in our own driveway for the past 20 minutes, live streaming their little performance on my phone. Welcome to Millbrook, Maine, where the fog rolls in thick and the betrayals run thicker. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Lucas Harper, and until today, I thought I was just another sucker married to an ambitious woman who'd grown bored with small-town life. Maya's a creative director at Pinnacle Advertising, all sleek blonde hair and sharp suits, always talking about networking and expanding our horizons. I'm a civil engineer who manages construction projects for the county, steady work, decent money, but apparently not exciting enough for a woman who thinks she deserves better. The irony? Colin Reddick, the bastard currently defiling our Egyptian cotton sheets, is my regional supervisor. He's also Maya's ex-boyfriend from college, a detail she conveniently forgot to mention when she suggested he stay in our guest room during his business trip to evaluate local projects. It's just professional courtesy, she'd said 3 days ago, her green eyes wide with manufactured innocence. He's only here for a week, and the hotels are all booked because of the Lobster Festival. I'd installed the security camera that same afternoon. Told Maya it was for package deliveries, since we'd had some thefts in the neighborhood. She'd actually helped me position it for the best angle. Now, watching Colin's hairy ass pumping away while Maya moaned like a porn star, I had to admire the perfect framing. The camera captured everything, their faces, the timestamps, even the little birthmark on Maya's left shoulder that I used to kiss every morning. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Nate. Beer tonight? Jenny's working late and I need to escape the house. I typed back, rain check. Got some home movies to edit. The footage was already uploading to my cloud storage, with copies automatically sent to 3 different email accounts I'd set up under fake names. In my line of work, you learn to build redundancy into every system. Maya's car pulled into the driveway at 6:30, right on schedule. I was already inside, sitting at the kitchen table with a beer and a stack of project reports, the picture of domestic normalcy. She breezed in wearing her power suit and guilt like expensive perfume. Hey, honey, she said, kissing my cheek with lips that had been wrapped around another man's dick 2 hours earlier. How was the site inspection in Augusta? Productive, I said, not looking up from my paperwork. Very productive. How was your day? Oh, client meetings, deadlines, the usual chaos. She kicked off her heels and rubbed her neck with theatrical exhaustion. Colin stopped by earlier to drop off some files. I hope you don't mind. I gave him a spare key so he wouldn't have to wait around. Of course you did. I took a long pull of my beer. That's very thoughtful of you. She studied my face for any sign of suspicion, but I'd had years of practice hiding my thoughts from Maya. She saw what she wanted to see, a trusting husband too dumb to connect the dots. I'm going to take a shower, she announced. Colin's taking us to dinner at the Lighthouse Inn tonight. His treat? How generous. I finally looked up, giving her my best approximation of a grateful smile. I'll wear my good shirt. After she disappeared upstairs, I opened my laptop and began cataloging the evidence. The video files were already organized by timestamp, with clear shots of both participants' faces. I created a simple spreadsheet. Dates, times, duration, notable activities. Maya always said I was obsessively organized. Tonight, that trait would serve me well. My phone rang. Colin's name flashed on the screen. Lucas, my man. His voice boomed with false camaraderie. Looking forward to dinner tonight. I've got some exciting news about a promotion opportunity that might interest you. I'm sure you do, I said. Can't wait to hear all about it. Great. See you at 7. I hung up and returned to my spreadsheet. Under notable activities, I typed, subject attempts to bribe husband with fake promotion after fucking his wife. The Lighthouse Inn sits on a bluff overlooking Penobscot Bay, all weathered shingles and nautical charm. Maya had changed into a black dress that hugged her curves, the same dress she'd worn on our 5th anniversary. Colin wore a navy blazer and the smug expression of a man who thought he was getting away with something. We were seated at a corner table with a view of the harbor. Colin ordered an expensive bottle of wine and launched into his pitch about a new regional development project that would need an experienced site manager. The thing is, Lucas, he said, leaning forward conspiratorially, this position would mean a significant raise. We're talking about a 40% bump in salary, plus performance bonuses. Maya's eyes lit up. That sounds amazing, doesn't it, honey? It does, I agreed. What's the catch? Colin laughed. No catch, just good timing. The current manager is retiring, and I need someone I can trust. Someone who understands the importance of discretion. The word hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. Maya shifted in her seat, suddenly fascinated by her lobster bisque. Discretion, I repeated. That's important in any relationship, isn't it? Professional or otherwise? Absolutely. Colin raised his glass. To new opportunities and mutual understanding. We clinked glasses. Maya's hand trembled slightly as she brought the wine to her lips. So tell me, Colin, I said, cutting into my steak with surgical precision. How long have you and Maya been working on this opportunity? Oh, we've been collaborating for a while now, he said. Maya's been very helpful with the preliminary planning. I bet she has. She's always been good with her hands. Maya choked on her wine. Lucas! What? I meant your graphic design work, all that hands-on creativity. Colin's smile faltered for just a second. Yes. Well, Maya's certainly talented. She is indeed, very flexible too, always willing to accommodate special requests. The double entendres were flying over Colin's head, but Maya was catching everyone. Her face had gone pale beneath her makeup. I should probably mention, I continued conversationally, that I upgraded our home security system this week. Amazing what technology can capture these days. High-definition video, crystal-clear audio, automatic cloud storage. It's like having a professional film crew documenting everything that happens in our house. Colin's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Security system? Oh yes, very comprehensive. Motion-activated cameras in all the common areas and guest spaces. I can monitor everything remotely from my phone. I pulled out my device and waved it casually. Want to see? I've got some fascinating footage from this afternoon. Maya's face had gone from pale to green. Lucas, maybe we should... Should what, darling? Share our home movies with Colin? I'm sure he'd find them very entertaining. Colin set down his fork. I think there might be some misunderstanding here. Oh, I don't think so. I understand perfectly. I leaned back in my chair, completely relaxed. The question is, what are we going to do about it? The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Other diners continued their conversations, oblivious to the drama unfolding at table 12. Finally, Colin cleared his throat. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Why? Maya's part of this conversation, aren't you, sweetheart? After all, you're the star of the show. She stood abruptly. I need some air. Sit down, I said quietly. The steel in my voice made her freeze. We're not finished. She sat. Here's what's going to happen. I continued, my tone still conversational. Colin, you're going to pick up this check, go back to whatever motel you're actually staying at, and pack your bags. You'll be on the road back to Boston within the hour. Now wait just a minute. I'm not finished. I didn't raise my voice, but something in my expression made him shut up. Maya, you're going to go home, pack a bag, and find somewhere else to sleep tonight. Tomorrow we'll discuss the terms of our divorce like civilized adults. Lucas, please, Maya whispered. Can't we talk about this? We are talking about it. Right here, right now, with all cards on the table. I pulled out my phone and showed them the video still frame, Colin's face clearly visible, Maya's legs wrapped around his waist. Unless you'd prefer to continue this conversation in front of a divorce attorney? Colin's face had gone red. You can't just... Can't what? Document adultery in my own home? I'm pretty sure I can. In fact, I'm pretty sure I have to, for legal purposes. I signaled the waiter for the check. This has been enlightening, but I have an early morning tomorrow. Construction waits for no one. As I stood to leave, I dropped a final bombshell. Oh, and Colin, you might want to check your employment contract. I believe there's a morality clause about relationships with subordinates' spouses. HR tends to frown on that sort of thing. Mrs. Evelyn Givens was watering her prize-winning roses at 7:30 the next morning when I stepped onto my front porch with a cup of coffee and a carefully rehearsed expression of wounded confusion. Morning, Evelyn, I called across our shared hedge. Beautiful day, isn't it? She looked up, her sharp eyes immediately cataloging the details. Maya's car missing from the driveway, my rumpled appearance, the dark circles under my eyes that I'd enhanced with a light smudge of ash from the fireplace. Oh, Lucas, dear, you look terrible. Is everything all right? I sighed heavily, running a hand through my deliberately disheveled hair. Just some marital issues, I'm afraid. Maya's staying at her sister's for a few days while we work things out. This was a lie. Maya didn't have a sister, but Mrs. Givens didn't know that. What she did know was that Maya's car hadn't been in our driveway since last night, and that Colin's rental car had disappeared around the same time. I'm so sorry to hear that. She abandoned her roses and moved closer to the hedge, her gossip sensors fully activated. You two always seemed so happy. Well, you never really know someone, do you? I took a sip of coffee and stared off toward the harbor with a look of profound sadness. I mean, when your wife's ex-boyfriend comes to stay in your guest room, you expect certain boundaries to be respected. Mrs. Givens's eyes widened. She was the neighborhood's unofficial information hub, and I'd just handed her the scoop of the century. Her ex-boyfriend was staying here? Colin Reddick. He's my supervisor at work too, which makes the whole situation rather awkward. I shook my head ruefully. I thought I was being a good host, making him comfortable, giving him privacy. I even installed that new security system to make sure the house was safe while I was at work. The implication hung in the air like morning fog. Mrs. Givens was practically vibrating with curiosity. Oh my, she murmured. That must have been very difficult for you. The hardest part is losing friends over it, I continued, playing my role to perfection. You'd think people would understand that I'm the victim here, but apparently taking a stand for your marriage makes you the bad guy. This was another strategic lie, designed to preemptively frame the narrative when Maya's friends inevitably chose sides. By positioning myself as the wronged party who'd been abandoned by fair-weather friends, I was ensuring that public sympathy would flow in my direction. What friends? Mrs. Givens asked, unable to contain her curiosity. Oh, the usual crowd. Maya's work friends, some couples we used to socialize with. Apparently calling out adultery is considered judgmental these days. I laughed bitterly. But I suppose that's what happens when you refuse to pretend everything's fine. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Nate's name. Excuse me, Evelyn, I should take this. I answered the call with a tired, hello? Dude, what the hell happened last night? Nate's voice was loud enough for Mrs. Givens to hear every word. Maya called Jenny at midnight, crying about some big fight at dinner. She's saying you threatened Colin and made a scene at the restaurant. Perfect. Maya was already trying to control the narrative, painting herself as the victim and me as the unstable husband. This played right into my hands. It's complicated, Nate, I said wearily. Can we talk about this later? I'm not really up for going over it all again right now. Are you okay, man? You sound like hell. I've been better. Listen, I need to get ready for work. Can we grab lunch later in the week? Of course, whatever you need. I hung up and turned back to Mrs. Givens, who was pretending to deadhead her roses while obviously eavesdropping. Sorry about that. News travels fast in a small town, I guess. Oh, Lucas, I had no idea you were going through all this. If there's anything I can do... I appreciate that, Evelyn. Really. It's just hard when people take sides without knowing the whole story. I finished my coffee and headed back inside, confident that the Millbrook Gossip Network would have my version of events circulating before noon. Mrs. Givens was better than social media when it came to spreading information, and she'd been primed with just enough details to make people curious about the rest. At the construction site, I threw myself into work with the focused intensity of a man trying to forget his troubles. My crew noticed my mood, but wisely kept their distance, probably assuming I was dealing with typical marital drama. Around 10 o'clock, my phone started buzzing with text messages. Maya, we need to talk. This is insane. Maya, you can't just throw away 8 years of marriage over one mistake. Maya, Colin says you threatened his job. That's not like you. I ignored them all, but screenshotted each message from my growing evidence file. Maya's attempts at damage control were only making things worse for her. At lunch, I drove to Rosie's Diner, Millbrook's unofficial town hall where local gossip was served alongside the daily specials. The place was packed with the usual crowd of retirees, off-duty cops, and small business owners who treated the lunch hour like a social event. I took a seat at the counter and ordered my usual, turkey club with fries. Within minutes, I was fielding concerned questions from acquaintances who'd obviously heard some version of the story. Heard you and Maya are having some troubles, said Tom Bradley, who owned the hardware store. Sorry to hear that, Lucas. Thanks, Tom. It's been a rough couple of days. If you need anything, tools, supplies, whatever, just let me know. Sometimes keeping busy helps. This was exactly the response I'd hoped for. By positioning myself as the wronged party, I was earning sympathy and support from the community. Meanwhile, Maya's reputation was taking a beating with every whispered conversation. My phone rang again. This time it was Colin. I answered with a curt, "What?" "Lucas, we need to discuss this situation rationally. I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. I saw the video, Colin. Hell, I've got it saved in multiple formats." The diner had gone quiet around me. I lowered my voice, but not enough to prevent eavesdropping. Look, I know how this looks, but it's not what you think. Maya and I have history, yes, but what happened yesterday was just... Just what? A slip? An accident? Did you accidentally take off your clothes and accidentally stick your dick in my wife? Several people at nearby tables were now openly staring. I had calculated this public conversation carefully. It would be all over town within hours. This is neither the time nor the place for this discussion, Colin said stiffly. You're right. The time was 3 days ago, before you started fucking my wife in my house. The place was anywhere but my guest room. I hung up and returned to my sandwich, ignoring the whispered conversations erupting around me. By evening, everyone in Millbrook would know that Lucas Harper had caught his wife cheating with his boss and that he wasn't going quietly into the night. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie Driscoll, a local real estate agent I'd worked with on several projects. We'd always had an easy professional relationship, but lately I'd noticed her paying more attention to me than strictly necessary. Sophie, heard you're going through a rough patch. If you need someone to talk to, I'm a good listener. I stared at the message for a long moment. Sophie was attractive, intelligent, and refreshingly direct. Everything Maya used to be before ambition turned her into someone I barely recognized. Under different circumstances, I might have been tempted, but not yet. I had work to finish first. I texted back, thanks, might take you up on that soon. The afternoon passed in a blur of concrete pours and equipment inspections. Physical labor had always been my therapy, and today I needed all the distraction I could get. Not because I was heartbroken. That ship had sailed months ago when Maya started working late every night and treating me like an inconvenience in my own home. No, I needed the distraction to keep from grinning like a maniac every time I thought about the next phase of my plan. By 5 o'clock, I'd received 14 text messages from Maya, 6 from Colin, and 3 from Maya's best friend Jenna, who was apparently serving as some kind of intermediary. I ignored them all. Instead, I drove home to my empty house and opened my laptop. It was time to begin Phase 2. The anonymous email account I'd created was named concernedcitizen47ard@protonmail.com, generic enough to avoid suspicion, but specific enough to seem legitimate. I spent an hour crafting the perfect message to Pinnacle Advertising's HR department. To whom it may concern, I feel obligated to report a serious ethical violation involving one of your employees. Maya Harper, a creative director at your firm, has been engaged in an extramarital affair with Colin Reddick, a regional supervisor from your Boston office. This relationship creates a clear conflict of interest, as Mr. Reddick has direct influence over contracts that affect Ms. Harper's projects. I have photographic and video evidence of this relationship, including documentation of their meetings at Ms. Harper's residence while her husband was at work. As a concerned citizen who values professional integrity, I believe this matter requires immediate investigation. The evidence is available upon request from appropriate authorities. Sincerely, a concerned observer. I attached a single screenshot from the security footage. Nothing explicit, just Colin and Maya in what was obviously an intimate embrace in my living room. Their faces were clearly visible, along with the timestamp proving the encounter occurred during business hours. The email was sent to 3 different addresses: the Maine HR department, the ethics hotline, and the regional director who supervised Colin. I used a VPN to mask my location and scheduled the messages to be delivered at different times throughout the evening. Next, I created a similar message for Colin's wife, Patricia, whom I'd met at several company functions. She was a sharp woman who'd always seemed suspicious of her husband's frequent business trips. This email was more personal, but equally devastating. Mrs. Reddick, I'm writing to inform you of your husband's ongoing affair with Maya Harper, a colleague from his company's Maine office. I have video evidence of their relationship, including footage from yesterday afternoon at the Harper residence. I debated whether to contact you, but I believe you deserve to know the truth about your husband's behavior during his business trips. The attached photo was taken yesterday at 2:47 p.m. I'm sorry to be the bearer of such painful news. A friend. The photo I attached showed Colin and Maya kissing passionately in my kitchen, both partially undressed. It was damning evidence that would be impossible for Colin to explain away. I scheduled this email to be delivered at 7 a.m., when Patricia would be checking her messages before work. By the time Colin woke up, his carefully constructed life would already be crumbling. My phone rang. Maya's name flashed on the screen. "What do you want?" I answered. "Lucas, please. We need to talk about this like adults. I know you're hurt, but destroying people's lives isn't going to fix our marriage." "Our marriage?" I laughed. "Maya, our marriage ended the moment you decided to fuck my boss in our guest room. I'm just making sure everyone else gets the memo. It was a mistake, one stupid mistake that got out of hand. Colin and I have history, yes, but it doesn't mean anything. You're my husband. You're the one I chose. No, Maya. You chose Colin. You chose to lie to me, to manipulate me, to turn me into a fool in my own house. Now you get to live with the consequences. What consequences? What are you talking about? I could hear the panic in her voice. She was starting to realize that her mild-mannered husband might not be as predictable as she'd assumed. You'll find out soon enough. In the meantime, I suggest you start looking for a new place to live, and maybe a new job. Lucas, you can't... I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring fresh chaos, and I wanted to enjoy one last peaceful evening in my house before the real fireworks began. I poured myself a scotch and sat on the back porch, watching the sun set over Penobscot Bay. The view was spectacular, one of the reasons Maya and I had bought this house in the first place. She'd talked about growing old here, about raising children who would play in the backyard while we watched from these same chairs. All lies, of course. Maya had never wanted children, just like she'd never really wanted a quiet life in Maine. I'd been a placeholder, a safe harbor, while she figured out what she really wanted. Well, now she'd figured it out, and it wasn't me. The scotch burned pleasantly as I contemplated the next 24 hours. By noon tomorrow, Colin would be dealing with an HR investigation and a furious wife. Maya would be scrambling to save her reputation and her job. And I would be the wronged husband who'd simply exposed the truth. My laptop chimed with a new email notification. Someone had already responded to my anonymous tip. Dear Concerned Observer, thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. We take all reports of ethical violations seriously and will begin an immediate investigation. If you have additional evidence, please forward it to this secure email address. We appreciate your commitment to maintaining professional standards. Sincerely, Margaret Foster, Director of Human Resources, Pinnacle Advertising Group. Perfect. The machine was already in motion. I finished my scotch and went inside to prepare for bed, but sleep was elusive. My mind was racing with possibilities, contingencies, and potential complications. Maya wasn't stupid. She'd figure out that I was behind the anonymous reports, but by then it would be too late to stop the avalanche. Around midnight, I heard a car in the driveway. Maya's key turned in the front door lock, followed by the sound of her heels clicking across the hardwood floor. Lucas? She called softly. Are you awake? I didn't answer. Let her wonder. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step a small defeat. The bedroom door opened and she stood silhouetted in the doorway, still wearing the black dress from dinner. I know you're not sleeping, she said. We need to talk? No, we don't. We need to get divorced. Everything else is just noise. She moved closer to the bed. In the dim light, I could see she'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged and her eyes were red and swollen. I love you, Lucas. I know that's hard to believe right now, but it's true. What happened with Colin was stupid and selfish and wrong, but it doesn't change how I feel about you. It changes how I feel about you. Please don't do this. Don't throw away 8 years over one mistake. I sat up and turned on the bedside lamp, making her squint in the sudden brightness. One mistake? Maya, you planned this. You invited your ex-boyfriend to stay in our house, you lied to me about his hotel situation, you gave him a key, and you fucked him in our guest room while I was at work. That's not a mistake. That's a calculated betrayal. It wasn't calculated. It just happened. Bullshit. Nothing just happens with you, Maya. You're too smart and too controlling to let anything just happen. You wanted this to happen, so you made it happen. She sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that I could smell her perfume mixed with guilt and desperation. Okay, yes, I wanted it to happen. But not because I don't love you. Because I was confused and scared and feeling trapped in this life we've built. Colin represented something from my past, something exciting and dangerous. It was stupid, but it wasn't about not loving you. Then what was it about? She was quiet for a long moment, searching for words that might save her. It was about being 33 years old and feeling like my life was already over, like I'd settled for safe instead of spectacular, and this was all there would ever be. Colin made me feel young again, made me feel like there were still possibilities out there. And what do I make you feel? Another long pause. Safe, she whispered. Comfortable, loved. But not excited. No, not excited. At least she was being honest now. Too late, but honest. Then we both know this marriage is over, I said. The only question is whether we end it quietly or with maximum destruction. What do you mean? I smiled, and something in my expression made her lean back. You'll find out tomorrow. Sweet dreams, Maya. My alarm went off at 6 a.m., but I was already awake, lying in bed and listening to Maya's troubled breathing beside me. She'd tossed and turned all night, probably dreaming about damage control strategies and exit plans. I showered, dressed, and made coffee while she pretended to sleep. By 7:15, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop, monitoring my anonymous email accounts and waiting for the first dominoes to fall. At 7:23 a.m., my phone rang. Colin's name on the caller ID. "You son of a bitch," he said without preamble. "What did you do?" "Good morning to you too, Colin. Having a rough start to your day?" "My wife just showed me a photo of me and Maya. She's talking to a divorce attorney this morning." "That's unfortunate. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on her." "You sent that email, didn't you? You're the concerned friend who decided to destroy my marriage." "I'm not sure what you're talking about. But if someone sent your wife evidence of your affair, maybe you should be thanking them. Honesty is the foundation of any good relationship." Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway, wearing one of my old t-shirts and a look of growing panic. She'd obviously heard enough of the conversation to understand what was happening. "This isn't over," Colin said. "You think you can ruin my life and just walk away. I'll make sure you never work in this industry again." "That's an interesting threat, Colin. I should probably record it for the HR investigation." "What HR investigation?" "The one that started when someone sent them evidence of your affair with a subordinate's wife. I hear they take ethics violations very seriously at your company." The line went quiet, except for Colin's heavy breathing. "You're insane," he finally said. "No, I'm thorough. There's a difference." I hung up and looked at Maya, who was standing frozen by the coffee maker. "Your turn," I said pleasantly. "Coffee?" She shook her head, her face pale and drawn. "Lucas, what have you done? I've documented the truth and shared it with interested parties. Nothing more, nothing less." My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "This is Patricia Reddick. I need to speak with you about my husband and your wife. Can we meet today?" I showed Maya the message. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed into the chair across from me. "Oh, God," she whispered. "Lucas, please, you have to stop this." "Stop what? Stop telling the truth? Stop holding people accountable for their actions? I don't think so. You're destroying innocent people. Patricia doesn't deserve this." "You're right. She doesn't deserve to be married to a cheating asshole. I'm doing her a favor." Maya started crying. Not the delicate tears of a woman trying to manipulate her husband, but the ugly, desperate sobs of someone watching her life implode in real time. "Please," she begged. "I'll do anything. I'll quit my job. We can move away, start over somewhere new. Just please stop this." "It's too late for that, Maya. You made your choice, and now everyone gets to live with the consequences." I stood up and grabbed my keys. "I'm going to work. I suggest you start looking for a place to stay because you're not welcome here anymore." "This is my house, too." "No, it's not. Check the deed. It's in my name only, remember? You said you didn't want to be tied down by property ownership." Another one of Maya's past decisions coming back to haunt her. She'd insisted on keeping our finances separate, maintaining her independence even within our marriage, now that independence was leaving her homeless. I kissed her forehead with mock tenderness. "Have a great day, sweetheart. Try not to check your work email until after lunch. I hear bad news is easier to digest on a full stomach." The construction site was buzzing with activity when I arrived, but I could barely concentrate on the work. My phone was exploding with calls and messages as the scandal spread through both companies like wildfire. At 10:30, I received a call from my own HR department. "Lucas, this is Janet Morrison from Human Resources. We need you to come in for a meeting this afternoon regarding a situation involving your supervisor, Colin Reddick." "What kind of situation?" "I'd prefer to discuss it in person. Can you be here at 2 o'clock?" "Of course. Is there anything I should bring?" "Just yourself. We'll provide any necessary documentation." I hung up and smiled. The investigation was already underway, which meant Colin's career was effectively over. No company would keep an employee who'd been credibly accused of sleeping with a subordinate's wife, especially when there was video evidence. My phone rang again. This time it was Jenna, Maya's best friend and coworker. "Lucas, what the hell is going on? Maya called me crying, saying you've lost your mind and are trying to destroy her life." "Hello, Jenna. How are you today?" "Don't give me that polite bullshit. Maya told me about the fight at dinner, but she says you're taking this way too far. Sending photos to Colin's wife? Really?" "I didn't send any photos to anyone. But if someone did, maybe they felt Colin's wife deserved to know the truth about her husband." "This is insane, Lucas. Yeah, Maya made a mistake, but you're acting like a psychopath." And there it was, the narrative Maya was trying to establish. She was the victim of a momentary lapse in judgment, and I was the unhinged husband who'd overreacted to a simple mistake. A mistake, Jenna. Is that what we're calling adultery now? It was one afternoon. One stupid decision that got out of hand. You're destroying multiple lives over one afternoon. Actually, it was 3 afternoons. I have time-stamped video evidence of all 3 encounters. Would you like me to email you the highlights? Silence. You recorded them? I recorded everything that happened in my house. It's called home security, Jenna. Very popular these days. Jesus Christ, Lucas. That's really fucked up. What's fucked up is your best friend screwing my boss in my guest room while I was at work. What's fucked up is you calling me to defend her behavior instead of acknowledging that she betrayed her marriage vows. I'm not defending what she did. I'm saying your response is disproportionate. My response is proportionate to the betrayal. Maya didn't just cheat on me, she planned it, executed it, and lied to my face about it. She turned me into a fool in my own home, so now she gets to experience the natural consequences of her choices. And what about Colin's wife? What about their kids? Did they deserve to have their family destroyed? Colin destroyed his family the moment he decided to cheat on his wife. I just made sure she found out about it. Jenna was quiet for a moment, probably realizing that her attempts to shame me weren't working. Maya loves you, Lucas. Whatever else happened, she loves you. No, she doesn't. She loves the security I provide, the comfortable life we built together, but she doesn't love me. If she did, she wouldn't have been able to betray me so completely. I hung up and turned off my phone. It was time to focus on the afternoon's HR meeting and the next phase of my plan. The Pinnacle advertising offices occupied the top 3 floors of Millbrook's only high-rise building, a glass and steel monument to small-town ambition. I'd been here several times for company functions, but never for anything as serious as an HR investigation. Janet Morrison was a stern woman in her 50s who'd built a reputation for handling sensitive situations with ruthless efficiency. She greeted me in the lobby and escorted me to a conference room where 2 other people were waiting, a man I didn't recognize and Margaret Foster, the HR director who'd responded to my anonymous email. "Lucas, thank you for coming in," Janet said. "This is David Chen from our legal department, and I believe you know Margaret Foster from our parent company." I shook hands with both of them, maintaining the demeanor of a confused employee who had no idea why he'd been summoned. "Before we begin," David said, "I want to assure you that this conversation is confidential and that you're not under any kind of investigation or suspicion of wrongdoing." "Okay," I said slowly. "Then why am I here?" Margaret opened a folder and pulled out several printed emails. "We received some concerning information about your supervisor, Colin Reddick, and his conduct during his current assignment in Maine. The allegations involve inappropriate relationships with local personnel and potential conflicts of interest." "What kind of allegations?" "Specifically, claims that Mr. Reddick has been engaging in an extramarital affair with your wife, Maya Harper, who works for one of our subsidiary companies. The informant provided photographic evidence to support these claims." I let my face show appropriate shock and confusion. "I'm sorry. What?" Janet leaned forward. "Lucas, we know this must be difficult to hear, but we need to ask you some direct questions about your recent interactions with Mr. Reddick." I don't understand. Are you saying Colin and Maya are having an affair?" "We're investigating that possibility," Margaret said. "Can you tell us about Mr. Reddick's living arrangements during his current visit to Maine?" I took a deep breath, playing the role of a man struggling to process devastating news. "He's been staying at our house. Maya suggested it when she heard he was coming to town for business. She said the hotels were all booked because of the lobster festival." "How long has he been staying with you?" "Since Monday. 4 days now." "And have you noticed anything unusual about his interactions with your wife?" I paused, as if reluctant to voice my suspicions. Well, yes. Now that you mention it, there have been some things that seemed odd. Maya's been working late a lot, and she seems different when Colin's around. More animated, I guess. More attentive." "Can you be more specific?" "Last night at dinner, there was this tension between them, like they were having a conversation I wasn't part of. And Maya's been very protective of her phone lately, which isn't like her." All of this was true, of course, but I was presenting it as if I'd been oblivious to its significance until this moment. "Have you seen any direct evidence of inappropriate behavior?" David asked. I hesitated, then pulled out my phone. "Actually, yes. I installed a new security system this week. We've had some package thefts in the neighborhood. The cameras captured some concerning footage." Margaret's eyebrows rose. "What kind of footage?" "I'd rather not describe it. Would you prefer to see it for yourself?" The 3 of them exchanged glances. Janet nodded. I opened the video file on my phone and placed it on the table where all 3 could see the screen. The footage showed Colin and Maya in a passionate embrace in my living room, his hands roaming over her body while she responded with obvious enthusiasm. "Jesus," David muttered. Margaret was taking notes. "When was this recorded?" "Yesterday afternoon, around 2:30. I was supposed to be at a site inspection in Augusta, but the meeting was canceled at the last minute. I came home and, well, I saw this." "Did you confront them about it?" "Not directly. I was too shocked, too hurt. I suggested we all go to dinner so I could try to figure out what to do. That's when things got really uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable how?" Colin started talking about a promotion opportunity, like he was trying to buy my silence. And Maya was acting guilty, nervous. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore, and I told them I knew what was happening. "How did they respond?" Colin left immediately. Maya tried to explain it away as a mistake, but I shrugged helplessly. How do you explain away something like that? Janet reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Lucas, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I can't imagine how difficult this must be. The worst part is that Colin's my supervisor. I don't know if I can continue working under him after this. Every time I see him, I'll think about what he did to my marriage." Margaret nodded. "That's completely understandable. In fact, that's one of the reasons we take these situations so seriously. Personal relationships between supervisors and subordinates create inherent conflicts of interest, even when they don't involve adultery." "What happens now?" "We'll be conducting a full investigation," David said. "Mr. Reddick will be suspended pending the outcome, and we'll be reviewing all of his recent decisions regarding your projects and performance evaluations." "Will I have to testify or anything like that?" "We may need additional statements from you, but we'll try to minimize your involvement as much as possible. You're the victim here, Lucas. We want to protect you, not put you through additional trauma." I thanked them for their consideration and left the building feeling genuinely satisfied for the first time in days. Colin's career was over. No company would hire him after this scandal, especially with video evidence of his misconduct. Maya's reputation at her own firm would be severely damaged by association, and I was positioned as the sympathetic victim who'd cooperated fully with the investigation. My phone had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I scrolled through them quickly, Maya begging me to call her back, Colin threatening legal action, Jenna asking me to reconsider my vendetta, and several messages from numbers I didn't recognize. One message caught my attention. It was from Sophie Driscoll. "Heard you had a rough day. Dinner tonight? My treat." I stared at the message for a long moment. Sophie was attractive, intelligent, and refreshingly straightforward. Everything Maya had once been. Under normal circumstances, I might have been tempted to accept her offer, but these weren't normal circumstances. I was in the middle of destroying my wife's life, and I needed to stay focused on that goal. Romance could wait until after the divorce was finalized. I texted back, "Rain check? Still dealing with the fallout from yesterday." Her response came immediately. "Of course. But Lucas, don't let them make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. You deserve better than what they put you through." I smiled despite myself. Sophie understood the situation better than Maya's friends did. She recognized that I was the wronged party, not the villain in this story. My phone rang, Maya's name on the screen. "What do you want?" I answered. "They fired me," she said, her voice hollow with shock. "HR called an hour ago. They said my relationship with Colin created a conflict of interest that compromised my professional judgment." "I'm sorry to hear that." "No, you're not. You're probably celebrating." She was right, but I wasn't going to admit it. "I'm not celebrating the destruction of your career, Maya. I'm just not surprised by it. Actions have consequences. You did this. You sent them that video, didn't you?" I cooperated with their investigation when they asked me direct questions. I told them the truth about what I'd observed. If that truth was damaging to your career, maybe you should have considered that before you decided to have an affair. It was 3 times, Lucas. 3 times in 4 days. It wasn't some long-term relationship or emotional betrayal. It was just physical. Just physical? You think that makes it better? I think it makes it different. I never stopped loving you. I never planned to leave you for Colin. It was just sex. Just sex with my boss, in my house, while I was at work, after lying to my face about his hotel situation and giving him a key to our home. She was crying again, but I felt no sympathy for her tears. "Where are you staying tonight?" I asked. "I don't know. Jenna offered her couch, but I think she's starting to believe I brought this on myself." "You did bring this on yourself." "I know that," she screamed. "I know I fucked up, okay? I know I made terrible decisions and hurt you and destroyed everything we built together, but does that mean I deserve to lose everything? My job, my home, my marriage, my friends. Does one mistake really deserve all of that? It wasn't one mistake, Maya. It was dozens of small choices that led up to a massive betrayal. You chose to invite Colin here. You chose to lie about the hotel situation. You chose to give him a key. You chose to have sex with him while I was at work. You chose to look me in the eye and lie about it afterward. Each of those was a separate decision, a separate betrayal. And you chose to destroy my life instead of trying to work through it. I chose to stop being a victim. There's a difference. I hung up and drove home to my empty house, feeling lighter than I had in months. Maya was gone, Colin was finished, and I was free to start over without the weight of their betrayal dragging me down. But I wasn't quite finished yet. There was still one more move to make, one final humiliation that would ensure Maya never forgot the price of betraying Lucas Harper. Saturday morning dawned clear and cold, with the kind of crisp autumn air that made Maine famous. I was sitting on my back porch with coffee and the local newspaper when my phone rang. Patricia Reddick's name appeared on the screen. "Mrs. Reddick," I answered. "I've been expecting your call." "Mr. Harper, I think we need to talk. Can you meet me somewhere private this morning?" "Of course. Do you know the Blueberry Hill Overlook on Route 15? "Yes, I can find it. 1 hour?" "I'll be there." The Overlook was a scenic pull-off about 10 miles outside town, popular with tourists but usually empty on weekend mornings. I arrived first and waited in my truck, watching the fog roll off Penobscot Bay while I considered what Patricia might want to discuss. She pulled up in a silver BMW and approached my vehicle cautiously. Patricia Reddick was an elegant woman in her early 40s, with a kind of understated style that came from old money and good breeding. She looked tired but determined, like someone who'd spent the night making difficult decisions. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sliding into the passenger seat of my truck. "I needed to speak with someone who understands what we're both going through." "I'm sorry about your marriage," I said. "I know this can't be easy for you." 22 years, she said quietly. 22 years of marriage, and I find out about his affairs through an anonymous email with photographic evidence. "Affairs? Plural?" She laughed bitterly. "Oh, Mr. Harper, Lucas. Your wife wasn't Colin's first extramarital adventure. She was just the first one stupid enough to get caught on camera." This was news to me, but it explained Patricia's calm demeanor. She'd been dealing with Colin's infidelity for years. "How long have you known?" "I've suspected for years, but I could never prove anything. Colin was always very careful about covering his tracks. Hotel receipts paid in cash, unexplained absences explained away as client meetings, phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room." "Why didn't you leave him?" "Our children, our social circle, our financial entanglements. The usual reasons people stay in marriages that should have ended years ago." She turned to look at me directly. "But mostly because I didn't have proof, and Colin is very good at making people doubt their own perceptions." "Gaslighting." "Exactly. He would make me feel crazy for questioning him, paranoid for checking his phone, insecure for noticing his behavior patterns. After a while, it was easier to pretend I didn't see what I was seeing." I understood that feeling. Maya had been doing the same thing to me for months, making me feel possessive and paranoid for noticing her late nights and secretive phone calls. "What changed?" I asked. "Your anonymous email. Suddenly I had proof. Undeniable, photographic proof that I wasn't crazy or paranoid or insecure. I was married to a serial cheater who'd been lying to me for years." "What are you going to do?" "I filed for divorce yesterday morning. My attorney says the video evidence will make the proceedings very straightforward, especially since Colin signed a prenup that includes an adultery clause." "Adultery clause?" She smiled for the first time since arriving. "My father insisted on it when Colin and I got engaged. He never trusted Colin's motives, thought he was marrying me for my family's money. Turns out Daddy was right. The prenup specifies that Colin forfeits his claim to spousal support and half our assets if he's caught cheating." "That's brilliant." "My father was a very smart man. He built safeguards into every important contract, including my marriage." Her expression grew serious again. "But I didn't ask you here to discuss my divorce strategy. I wanted to thank you for sending me that email." "I told you before. I didn't send any emails." "Of course you did, and I'm grateful for it, even though I know you were motivated by revenge rather than concern for my well-being." I didn't confirm or deny her accusation. Patricia was clearly intelligent enough to have figured out the truth, but admitting to the anonymous emails could create legal complications down the road. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Information. I want to know everything you know about Colin and Maya's relationship. Dates, times, locations, duration. My attorney says the more evidence we have, the stronger my position in the divorce proceedings." "I can provide that." I also want to know about Colin's behavior toward you. Any threats, intimidation attempts, abuse of his supervisory authority. If he tried to coerce you into silence, that could be grounds for additional legal action. He did threaten my job, but I don't have any proof of that. We might not need proof. The pattern of behavior will be enough to establish his character for the court. We spent the next hour going over every detail of the past week. Patricia took notes in a leather-bound journal, asking pointed questions about timing, locations, and witnesses. She was thorough and methodical, clearly accustomed to dealing with complex situations that required careful documentation. One more thing, she said as we prepared to leave. I wanted to warn you that Colin is planning some kind of retaliation against you. I overheard him on the phone last night talking to someone about making that bastard pay for ruining his career. What kind of retaliation? I don't know specifically, but Colin has connections throughout the construction industry. He might try to blacklist you, spread rumors about your competence or reliability. He's vindictive enough to try to destroy your career the way you destroyed his. This was concerning, but not entirely unexpected. Colin struck me as the type of man who would lash out when cornered, especially if he felt his masculine pride had been challenged. I appreciate the warning, I said. Is there anything else I should know? Just that you shouldn't underestimate him. Colin is charming and persuasive when he wants to be. He might try to turn your colleagues against you, make you seem like the unstable party in this situation. Let him try. I have video evidence of his misconduct and witness testimony about his threats. If he wants to make this a public battle, I'm ready for it. Patricia smiled approvingly. Good. Colin's used to intimidating people into submission, but he's never dealt with someone who was prepared to fight back. I think he's going to be unpleasantly surprised. We shook hands and went our separate ways. As I drove home, I felt a sense of satisfaction at having found an unexpected ally in Patricia Reddick. Her divorce proceedings would keep Colin busy and financially stressed for months, preventing him from focusing too much energy on revenge against me. But I wasn't naive enough to think this was over. Colin's career might be finished, but his capacity for causing trouble was probably just getting started. My phone buzzed with a text message from Maya. We need to talk. I'm coming by the house this afternoon. I texted back, No, you're not. You don't live here anymore. It's still my house, too, until the divorce is final. Check the deed. It's in my name only. You have no legal right to be here. Lucas, please. I just want to get some of my things and talk about how we're going to handle this divorce. I considered her request. Part of me wanted to deny her access entirely, to force her to communicate through attorneys and make every interaction as difficult as possible. But another part of me was curious about what she might say, what final justifications or apologies she might offer. 1 hour, I texted back. You can get your things, but we're not discussing the divorce. That's what lawyers are for. Thank you. I spent the afternoon preparing for Maya's visit. I moved her belongings from our bedroom into boxes and placed them by the front door, making it clear that this was a pickup, not a reconciliation attempt. I also set up my phone to record any conversation we might have, just in case she said something that could be useful in divorce proceedings. She arrived at 3 o'clock, driving a rental car and looking like she'd aged 5 years in the past week. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her typical designer outfits. Thank you for letting me come by, she said, surveying the boxes by the door. I see you've already packed for me. I thought it would be more efficient this way. She opened the first box and began checking its contents, probably looking for anything I might have deliberately excluded or damaged. I watched from the kitchen doorway, maintaining my distance both physically and emotionally. You missed some things, she said after examining all 3 boxes. My jewelry box, some photo albums, my grandmother's china. Those items are still upstairs. You can get them. She climbed the stairs slowly, like someone approaching a crime scene. I followed at a distance, not trusting her to be alone in the house where she might plant evidence or steal something valuable. In our former bedroom, she stood looking at the bed where we'd slept together for 8 years. The sheets had been changed, but I could see her remembering happier times when our marriage had seemed solid and permanent. Do you ever think about the good times? She asked without turning around. Our wedding day, our honeymoon in Ireland, that Christmas when we got snowed in and spent 3 days just talking and making love. Sometimes, I admitted. But then I remember that those good times were built on a foundation of lies. You were never the person I thought you were. Yes, I was. For a while, I really was that person. The woman who loved you completely and wanted to build a life with you. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself. I started feeling trapped by our quiet life, resentful of your contentment with things I found boring. So you decided to cheat on me with my boss. I decided to feel alive again. Colin represented excitement, danger, the possibility that I could still be someone other than Lucas Harper's wife. She finally turned to face me, and I could see genuine regret in her eyes. I know that doesn't excuse what I did. I know I should have talked to you about how I was feeling instead of acting out like a teenager, but I was scared you'd try to talk me out of it, convince me to settle for the life we had instead of pursuing the life I wanted. What life did you want, Maya? Really? I wanted to matter. I wanted to do work that excited me, to live in a place that challenged me, be with someone who saw me as more than just a comfortable companion. And Colin was that someone? She laughed bitterly. No. Colin just wanted to fuck his ex-girlfriend while his wife was out of town. He never saw me as anything more than a convenient piece of ass. Then why did you risk everything for him? Because for 3 afternoons, I felt like the woman I used to be before I became half of a couple. I felt desired and dangerous and free. And now? And now I feel like an idiot who destroyed her marriage for a few hours of meaningless sex. She gathered her jewelry box and photo albums, moving with the mechanical efficiency of someone going through familiar motions while her mind was elsewhere. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said as we walked back downstairs. I don't even expect you to understand why I did it, but I want you to know that losing you is the worst consequence of my stupidity. Losing my job, my friends, my reputation, all of that hurts, but losing you is what I'll regret for the rest of my life. You should have thought about that before you gave Colin a key to our house. I know. I should have thought about a lot of things. She loaded her boxes into the rental car while I watched from the front porch. As she prepared to drive away, she rolled down her window for one final exchange. What happens now? She asked. Now we get divorced and try to rebuild our lives separately. Will you ever be able to forgive me? I considered the question seriously. Maya had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible, but she'd also been my wife for 8 years. We'd shared dreams, fears, and intimacies that couldn't be completely erased by her infidelity. Maybe someday, I said, but not today, and probably not anytime soon. She nodded and drove away, leaving me alone with my empty house and my complicated feelings about the woman who'd shared my life for nearly a decade. That evening, I opened a bottle of wine and sat on my back porch, watching the sun set over Penobscot Bay. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, divorce proceedings, potential retaliation from Colin, questions from friends and neighbors about the spectacular collapse of my marriage. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt genuinely at peace. The lies were over, the betrayals were exposed, and the consequences were being distributed to their rightful owners. Maya would have to rebuild her life from scratch. Colin would have to find a new career and probably a new wife, and I would have to figure out who I was when I wasn't half of a couple. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be honest. And after months of living with deception and manipulation, honesty felt like a luxury I could finally afford. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. Heard Maya moved out today. How are you holding up? I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, better than expected. Rain check on that dinner? Absolutely. Tomorrow night? Tomorrow night. I finished my wine and went inside to start planning the next chapter of my life. One that would be built on truth instead of comfortable lies, on genuine connection instead of settling for security. Maya had wanted to feel alive again, and in her own destructive way, she'd given me the same gift. For the first time in years, I felt like anything was possible.